I know what the reason I asked was because I know what that's like going through that. Lennon one time, when we were looking for an album cover, everything was an album cover or title. Classic things.
Tell me about it.
So we went to a drugstore and we were looking around. I saw a postcard, and it was two little kittens from Pussycats, you know.
Yeah.
And I showed it to him because of the yin and yang. He says, "That's it. That was it."
And Pussycats
so, but I said, "How can we use it? It's somebody else's postcard." I mean, he says he had learned that all you have to do is change it in any way, shape, or form, and sign it, and it becomes yours.
It's called appropriation. It's called appropriation.
I didn't know that. I think it's stealing.
No.
Well, listen.
No.
If I put my name on your picture, should it be mine?
Well, let me answer the way Picasso answered. Somebody came up to Picasso and said, "Is this the real Picasso?" He says, "Does the dealer say it is?" He said, "Yes, it is now."
Well, that's the case for the courts then, you know. But I mean, to me, the point is, it worked.
There are 6 science fiction books called The American Book of the Dead. There's several non-fiction books called The American Book of the Dead. I came up with it first, but I can't protect the name.
Yeah.
You can't protect. You can't.
No, but you can protect the lettering. That's
the
what
lettering,
is
yes.
so important.
The lettering, yes.
The Coca-Cola trademark.
That's right. There was. We've had this happen so many times. Klaus Oldenburg stole. He came into our graduate studio. He saw my soft breathing sculptures made out of vinyl. He stole it. But think about this. I was what? Let me see. I was in my teens, mid-teens. I had come up with an idea for something, sculpture, soft sculpture.
Yeah.
And here I was in a graduate classroom with this stuff, and I was never going to get out of there with this. And I had a rinky-dink little gallery on Melrose Place, not even Melrose Place, not La Cienega, around the corner from La Cienega.
I know where it is.
And the Bob Camara Gallery, which is about as big as this room. And that's the gallery that I was with. And here Klaus Oldenburg comes in, and he was like God. I mean, he and Roy Lichtenstein used to come through the graduate studios and check it out and see what the action was. Everybody did that.
Yeah.
Everybody did. And I was pissed off when he first came out with this stuff, and he plastered it everywhere and said, "That's my idea." And I can tell you when the son of a bitch was in my studio, and he ripped me off. Years later, it took me about 30 years to finally calm down.
Yeah.
And to realize this guy didn't steal, and he didn't regard it as stealing, and he was okay with this. I could never have gotten out there with that idea like he did. Because I didn't have the dealers, I didn't have the name, I didn't have the distribution, and that is always the name of the game, distribution.
Seems to be.
Yeah. I got 4 manuscripts last week that mention Margaret Hamilton in a variety of different ways. 4 different ways of getting Margaret Hamilton into a science fiction story. By God, I mean on the same day, 4 different writers had Margaret Hamilton flying through the story. And I know these things do happen.
Yeah.
I wrote a story that was with WGA. I had it with WGA registered, and I gave it to somebody. And Joyce she's going to live in LA. She could remind me. I can't remember the guy's name, but he was known for ripping off stories. And I gave it to him. I didn't know his reputation, and Terry Southern will remember too, because I think Terry got ripped by this guy as well. Bastard of a producer, and he stole from everybody. Stole everything that he got his hands on. And he rejected my script. Lo and behold, a year later, my script was out in film.
Sure.
And I went to him, and I said, I walked up to him, I went to his office, and I said, "I'm coming to see you, to talk to you." He said, "Sure." And I said, "I saw my film, and I'm very happy you filmed it. Why didn't you tell me that you would use my script?" "What script?" said, you know damn well what script it was. You had it in your hand, you turned it down, and then you made the film. And he says, I swear to God. He showed me 3 scripts from 3 different authors.
Yeah.
And he said, I have a reputation for ripping people off. He says, but I swear to God I didn't do it. He said, the script that came to me was better than your script because it was a known writer. He said, I had to take the known writer over the unknown because I had to somehow, finance the film. He said, I had to finance the film. He says the money action is not going to be there for an unknown writer, no matter how good the script is.
Yeah.
They're gonna ask, what did you do last week?
Yeah.
I believed him afterward. I went up to Lake Tahoe to visit Tabby. Tabby was up there working as a she was running the she wasn't a dealer. She was running for Bill Harris. She was running his publicity, the public relations department for Bill Harris, I believe. Is what it was. A good job, whatever it was. Or it was either that or she was booking the shows. I think she might have been booking the shows then.
That's right.
Yeah, at Harris Club. And so I went up there to visit her, and she said, would you like to go onto the floor? Oh, I've got a great story to tell about this night, because it was my first night ever gambling. I'd never gambled before. My mother was a big gambler. And I'd never gone out with her, never gambled, and never done anything like this. We sat down at the $2 table, and they took my money very, very fast. I had a nice little run at the beginning.
Both dollars.
Both dollars. I probably lost $100 total. I mean, I didn't know that money managers pay attention at the time, and I probably dropped $100, which was a lot of money at that moment. $2 at a time.
Yeah.
I had no idea how to play the game, no idea what was going on, and I walked out of them and I said, Tabby, these people steal. And she said, I promise you that was a straight game. They can't afford to lose their license by taking your $2. Believe me.
Yeah.
That's the way the luck runs. The dealers always draw the 20 and 21. They always do. Even though they're supposed to break first, they never do. And she tried to explain to me about the opportunities to break in this and that and how to count and so on. She taught me a lot of that stuff that weekend. But my first thought was, this is a rip-off. They're stealing money. I was going to tell you the story what happened that night. I went over to my parents were up in Tahoe, across the street. They were staying at the other club, Sahara. And, because they loved the Sahara. They hated Harris Club. They didn't like the action films. And so I said to Tabby, I think I'll go over and spend some time with my folks. She said, oh, I'd love to go. So she and I and Morgan and a number of other people, I forget who it was, but a whole gang of us went over from Harris, walked over to the Sahara, and went to sit with him. My dad loves to play roulette. That's his game. And it turns out to be mine also. I'm very good at it, very, very hot at it. So we sat down at the roulette wheel. My dad and I sat at the roulette wheel. We were playing roulette. And he got up to leave to go to the loo. And so the seat was empty. And a woman sat down, and I turned to her to say, I'm sorry, the seat is taken. And the pit boss went. So I didn't say anything. And she was in a gold lame dress. She was dressed to the hilt, dressed to the nines, and decked out with ice all over her. She was obviously very wealthy. And a woman of some color. She started to bet the 17 and 20.
Always the 17.
Yeah. I hit on that a lot, but
Yeah,
you've got to
too.
go around it
Yeah.
by the section
Yeah,
of the
that's
wheel.
what I do, yeah.
Yeah. So you bet the 3, 5, 11, 17, 20, 23, 32, 22, 32, and you got the sectional wheel. And my dad does that, and he's a consistent winner. And so am I. She was betting loudly and $5 chips at a drop on each of the pieces. And she's, shit! I lost another one. I want another $5 on 1720. I want another marker. Give me a goddamn marker over here. I want one now. And she's making a big fuss, and security's starting to get a little edgy on this thing. And there's this horrible woman, and she's raising the hugest stink in the place, and now we've got a crowd around us, and now
Yeah.
she's got a stack like this on 17 and a stack like this on 20. She wants to bet 10,000, and I'm sorry, there's this table limit and so on. Well, give me the goddamn table limit then. She said, if my husband were here today, he'd have you people strangled. I'm gonna go get him. Get my old man. Kill her, where the hell are you? Then I looked at her.
Oh no. Good Wilson.
You got it.
Flip Wilson's a comedian in the 60s. He was a black guy, comic stand-up. He had this alter ego called Killer.
No,
Geraldine.
Killer was the husband.
And Geraldine had
And this was Flip Wilson in drag playing next to me, and I never looked at this woman once. I mean, I got a glimpse of her, but she was so brash and so outrageous. Turned out that Flip Wilson was playing for the house to attract the crowd and to get people in. Because the mainline room was down. The headline room was down. You know,
It was what?
It was down. The headline room. It was down. The headliner, their main room,
Oh,
was down. They were not getting the action.
gotcha.
So they were bringing people to the Flip Wilson show by doing a Flip Wilson publicity stunt.
All those days.
Yeah.
Good old
They
Vegas.
asked your dad to
Tahoe.
go or get out and go to the Yes,
And then Donner came back, my dad comes back, and he stands behind me. He knew.
Yeah.
And he knew that I didn't know. And so he sat there and watched me to see what would happen.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I said, well, we often do that with each other. We let each other play out the games, you know, experience them. There were some Brazilian dancers. This was on a different time. We went up for New Year's. I got the pictures of this. This is the goddamn thing. Morgan and I we weren't given a choice. We had to go to this thing, and we hate Reno and Vegas and Tahoe. We just hate it. We hate to gamble, and I resent having to sit next to my mother and gamble, but she likes me to do it, and I'll do it for her. And went up there for a New Year's. It was supposed to be the most spectacular New Year's that Harrah's ever had for its high roller people. It was all chained off. It was all, you know, no hoi
section
polloi.
put aside.
Section put aside, a whole floor to themselves, $100 tables and up, no limits on some tables. It was very, very high roller stuff. And here we are, Morgan and me, you know, they're peeling off a $100 bill and $100. Oh, Jesus, another $100. How are we gonna break it again? And we, you know, they cleaned us up. We went 1,000 down in the first 2 minutes, you know. And we're sweating buckets, and my mother's on there, and she's got it stacked up. Of course, she has tons of money, so it's building. We have just a little bit of money, so we're dropping. And we were sweating around, so finally, my mother says, why don't we go in and see what the dancing is like and what the party is like and what's going on. So this is a Brazilian group, and it's a very spectacular show.
Yeah, sure.
50 Brazilian dancers and the plumes and all 6.5, 7 feet tall. You know.
Those count.
Yeah. And it was a great show. They actually brought a Brazilian band up and Brazilian dancers up from the street. They did this second line dance, and it was unbelievable. And my ex-wife grew up with Mac Rebennack. Well, how did you know?
Thank you.
She's taking care of herself. We're slow, but we're
Her
catching
name
on.
is Lana. Is Lana Gentile Jumonville, and Jerry Jumonville was her ex-old man.
I mean, for sure. Trumpet
Yeah.
player?
Sax.
Sax player.
Yeah, sax.
Oh, you know what? Excuse me.
Yeah.
I've only actually fired a guy from a session one time, and he was the guy.
That's
And you know what it was for?
Nose action.
yeah.
But it wasn't that. It was just that
He's a wise ass.
Well, yeah, but he was also unfair. He was being hoggish.
Yeah.
And that's why I
Yeah,
said,
good.
you can
Good
leave.
for you. He wanted. I said, Jerry, come on up here and do some stuff on our albums, you know. And he says, well, I need $2,000 a day. And I said, Jerry, it's me, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? $2,000 a day? I don't see $2,000.
Yeah, he's an okay player, but yeah.
Yeah. It's not that good.
$2,000 a day.
I mean, I can think of 10 people I can get here in 2
Saxophone
seconds.
players
flat.
are...
Yeah. And if I had my choice, I would have had Plas Johnson on bone up here, and I would never have had a sax player up at all. Horn, you know, reed player's not my first choice. And so let me see, Jerry.
We were up in Reno, where it's the Brazilian.
Oh, yeah, the Brazilian thing.
And 2 stories removed.
Yeah.
We're getting back to
I can tell you stories about Jerry doing. I won't do it.
No,
It's not
no,
fair. And another one. I should tell you another one of Mac's people, the bass player. No, because it's true. Chris Etheridge, the bass player with Mac, posed in our childbirth.
What?
From what?
He played with the
Burrito
Brothers.
Yeah.
On the Crosby, Stills and Nash cuts. He
Oh,
played
okay,
there, so a lot of
right.
stuff.
And you know Karen, his wife Karen?
No.
He and Karen were in our childbirth book. We did a childbirth book for Signet.
I heard Buddha told me that.
Yeah, National Childbirth.
Yeah,
Joyous
National
Childbirth. The Joyous
And we actually
Childbirth.
founded the childbirth movement long before, what's his name, the famous guy. Lamaze, before, we were 10 years before Lamaze. Only, you know, it's just, we didn't have that
Name
name.
his Twitter.
Right?
You weren't first.
Oh, no. We used,
We're having a
I think it was
long
a guy named Adam. I think that's it.
that's the
The
guy.
guy who had a belly button.
Yeah, right.
We actually we saved a baby with a technique that was used 75 years before by a pioneer, a DC, actually, a chiropractor used to deliver. A guy named was Joe. And he used to deliver babies in Washington and Oregon. He used to make a circuit around Yakima, in that area around Yakima. And all the way into eastern Washington, he would go by sled, the dog sled, into some areas. And he told me, he described the story of how he saved this baby's life. I was working as a midwife in Los Angeles. We had 2 MDs. Oh, it's a bizarre story. I know the things that I did. I could never keep a job.
Yeah.
I could never keep a job. I always had that.
You're a free spirit.
That's it. So we actually used something that he taught me, which is he said if you have a prolapsed cord and the cord should break too close, you take your finger at your hand and you jam it against the back, against the inside of the back, and you get that kid to an OR fast. And we brought the kid in the gas wagon. We had 2 gas wagons, 2 EMT teams standing by for home deliveries. We had an EMT wagon right outside the door, and we had an access to Children's Hospital all the time, and we always had access. I grew up with the Thomases. Danny Thomas used to. Well, you probably shopped there, Nicola Twins Market. On Sunset, on Fountain and Sunset.
Yeah, I know. I used to live there.
Well, the Thomases, it was a Lebanese family that ran the thing.
Well, anyway, yeah.
And they were Lebanese butchers. We called them the Lebanese butchers. So I had access to St. Jude. I had access to Children's Hospital. I was working with Make-A-Wish Foundation, which wasn't yet a foundation at that time, and they made sure we had access to all the children's ORs for these kids whenever they needed it. And we didn't need it often. Once in a while we did. We brought that kid in like this to Children's Hospital with a cord, and they said, "How did you do that? Well, this is something that somebody did 75 years ago. Nothing new under the sun."
Yeah.
So you're right. I mean, this is way before we did. But we actually started the hospices across the country, which Albert knows. We were the ones that started this stuff. The hospices for the terminally ill. We did the midwifing for terminal patients. Where midwifing through. Oh, it's wild. We had the first birthing center in Los Angeles. We did 350, 400 births a year. Home births, home deliveries, not in hospitals. And then we lost our insurance and we had to break it down. It was $15,000 a quarter for the insurance, just for the malpractice.
Wow.
And nobody could afford to do that. And we wanted to keep the price down below $1,000 so that nobody had to pay more than $1,000 for childbirth. We couldn't. not with that kind of hair. So we closed. Anyway, what the hell was it?
Reno.
Way
And
out.
before that, ABD place.
Oh, yes. So we showed up at this thing, this Brasilia thing, and it was like Brazil '66, but it was Brazil '90 or '89.
It was 80s.
87, 86, 87, something. And they came out, and this line, this chorus line, this gorgeous chorus line, and they started doing second line. And this guy, what was his name? The mafia guy that liked, he took a shine to us. He liked us. He was one of these pit bosses who, he felt sorry for us. We were over the $2 table, my mother's over at the $100 table. And we would play there for a while and then go try to recover and just unshake for a while. We were trembling. Yeah. So we go to the $2 table. This guy felt sorry for us. It's not Sonny. I can't think of the guy's name. Big bruiser.
Mike.
He'd been
Mike.
and he'd been an enforcer. Don't say his last name. He'd been an enforcer.
Right.
He'd been
Not
an
on tape.
No, seriously don't. Because you really don't.
No, I know.
Dick Sinatra.
Yeah. He'd been an enforcer. He was retired to the club. And he was an enormous guy, and he was a pit boss. And he kind of took us under his wing and kind of looked after us because my parents were high rollers, and we were looked after for that. Not because he liked us, but because he was keeping us out of their hair so we wouldn't bother them while they went and gambled, So he said, EJ, Morgan, did you ever meet these guys? I'm going to take you backstage. So he brought us backstage, and we met this troupe, and they're all speaking Portuguese, of course. And we were backstage, we were talking with them as best we could, as best they could. We had a wonderful time back there. We met the band leader and some of the musicians and the girls that were dancing. And they said, do you dance? And she says, oh, yeah, he dances. He does second line dancing down in New Orleans. He does second line with some of the Indians down there. Why? I don't understand it. Oh, yeah, he dances. And I said, no, I don't really dance, This is a lot of energy, Morgan.
Ask me.
You know what the dancing's like, in Brazilian street dance. It's a lot of energy. And she says, no, go ahead, go out there, and I'll take a camera, and I'll take some shots, and it'll be great fun, and we'll bring it back, and we'll show all the guys what you're doing up here, because they're wondering, what is EJ doing up in Reno? So now they'll find out what I do on New Year's Eve. And so I went up there and I started to dance with them. And this one girl who was almost my height, she was only a foot taller than me, and that's without the feathers, comes over and she kind of takes me and she starts to, and she's showing me the steps that they're doing, which are different from the New Orleans steps, very different from the New Orleans steps. And she's teaching me the dances and going through the stuff. And she didn't speak a word of English, and I didn't speak a word of Portuguese. And we went through this whole dance thing, and I spent, 4 hours, 5 hours, till 3 o'clock in the morning. I never got off the floor.
You were being a line.
Never got off the floor. Now I weighed 270 pounds, sweating like crazy, and I was still a sugar freak, and I still was junking on sugar, and I was drinking very heavily. I was drinking Grand Marniers, 12 Grand Marniers a night.
Could you?
Because that's what I could do.
You were not a drinker.
No. It was either that or Black Russians, and I couldn't stand those. I knew you'd feel that way.
Honest to God.
I know. And
I don't drink,
no, I have good taste in truffles. It's the Gold Rush with the Jack Daniels, the J.J.
And some cream de mint.
That's right. I'm one of these assholes that ordered the stuff with all the colors in it.
Some vodka and some maple syrup.
Yeah. Can you give me the thing with all the layers in it? I like that.
And 3 more umbrellas and a cherry.
That's right.
Don't forget the straw.
And a knife.
That's right.
Long spoon.
That's right. And you got a side dish to go with this, So I was not a
What
drinker.
do you call that drink?
Expensive.
A Shirley Temple Black Out.
Van Galactic Gargle Blaster. So, no, I'm not a drinker. I'm not a drinker at all, and I black out very fast because I go right into a diabetic shock immediately.
I wonder why.
Hey, Cole, wait a minute. Coffee Kioki was my drink in the restaurant.
Well, you know, some of us are mass murderers.
So I had a lot of Grand Marniers down, and I had a couple of Kiokis, and I was very ill. I was a sugar junkie. I wasn't a booze junkie. I was a sugar junkie. I was after the sugar.
Sure.
And I would take the Kioki and I'd add sugar to the Kioki coffee. Oh yeah, 2 or 3 spoonfuls, heaping spoonful of this stuff. And you talk about maple syrup. I actually have still, at all times, 6 gallons of maple syrup on hand, and I've got it right there here.
Yes, it's true.
Always, in case I freak out, and I've got to have it. I haven't touched it in 10 years, but I have to have it.
Well, it got me out of the Army.
Yeah, really.
It did.
It's got to. I wish it had gotten me.
It's a story, I'll tell you that.
So I got up and danced with it, and it was all night with these, and I was slugging down this garbage to keep myself going. And my clothes were sopping wet. I mean, these girls were almost nude,
Yeah.
and I'm in a tux,
Yeah.
and it was wet. And I'm going and going and going and going like a battery commercial.
Like that.
Yeah, ever-ready.
Yeah.
The rabbit.
And she's taking photograph after photograph. She's getting right up on the stage and taking photos on the stage. Which, if it wasn't us and we weren't with my mom, forget it. It would never. They would have dragged us off immediately. And she even took photographs of me down in the casino, and they let us live. She forgot. She forgot. It was just a blip out. She forgot.
Yeah.
She handed the camera to her mom and said, "Take some shots of us, Mom." So she's taking shots. Security comes over. "Oh, it's you guys. You know better. Morgan, you know better." Because all the security people know us, because we were always wandering, trying to get away from the $100 table. So the upshot, my dad says, "Wow, how did you rate, getting with all these beautiful girls and stuff?" And he's, he's still got the Capitol Records head on it, And so I said, "You just dance. You go up there and dance. You do, Wow," he says, "maybe I'll do." He didn't do it that year. The next year, they had the same show, so we went again because it was a fabulous show. Only what they neglected to mention to us was that they didn't bring the people up from Brazil this time, but they had the same show. Okay, but these were locals. These were people out of people who were maybe. It was dark that night at the circus,
Yeah.
So they found somebody to dance from there. So here are these short women in very tall costumes, rented costumes, trying to do Brazilian dancing, and the guys on stage were doing the Brazilian standards. I mean, they had a fake book up there, and they were, "What do we do now, Murray?" And
Kansas City.
Yeah, Brazilian style. So they were playing all these pseudo-Brazilian pieces. I mean, it was nowhere near the same thing.
Yeah.
And my dad says, "I am going to get up there and do the same thing." Well, at this point, I wasn't going to. We were ready to leave. And my dad gets up and he starts to dance with a couple of chicks up there on this, and she's already taking photographs, and the pit bosses all came over with these disposable. They gave disposable cameras every year to all the patrons. These little cardboard cameras. I'd never seen one before, and I'm not so happy having seen them. All the pit bosses had them, and they all came over and started to photograph Donner with all these. With these 2 girls in particular.
Yeah.
And afterward, Mike comes over and he says, Don, he says, "that was very gutsy of you to get up there and do that." He says, most people like you, who are well known and who are known in a variety of fields, would not be seen in public with a couple of drag queens. These were drags doing a comedy
Why were they
bit.
short though?
They were doing a comedy bit takeoff on the Brazilian.
No.
He's got the photos, and I think I have a shot of this someplace. Maybe he's funny.
Save you, in case we get out of hand too much.
Now, I know you've got better stories than this about things like that. That's the best I can come up with.
That's okay. I'm still looking at this. Oh my God.
Okay.
In your spare time, you also do this.
Oh no, my copious.
It's only a
spare time.
fraction
This
of
is
them,
now. This is funny. Open this book. The
The
German.
top one?
No, the bottom, the middle
Middle
book. And this, what's the other one? The other one Spanish or Portuguese or what?
Spanish.
Well, I can't open it sealed.
Open it
Did you
up.
unseal?
Open it up.
Yeah.
It should.
Oh, yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah, we got plenty.
There's also in
Where's
Portuguese.
My fingers don't
Okay.
work anyway.
There's also in Portuguese and in French and in Italian now
Where do you
and
get
Russian.
the time? My
Well, other people
God.
translate.
If
You
I
must
had
have
to do
do
all,
the
I told you, if I had
translation.
to, I explained to you the other day, if I had to do everything myself, I would paint 4 paintings a year.
Yeah, yeah, I understand that
I
part,
can't.
but still.
No, I got translators and
Help put books together. But you also work very hard.
we've got to call Gene